Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is April 18th, and today we're going to take a look at this cold front moving into the area, bringing some gusty winds and some moderate, even briefly heavy rainfall at times with this storm system. Then we'll take a look at our extended forecast. We have more active weather to talk about coming up, even a tornado threat on Wednesday for portions of the coast. So we'll take a look at that in some detail. And we'll look into the extended, perhaps a nice weekend coming up next weekend. So stay tuned here. We're also going to talk about La Nina a little bit more here at the end of the video. So we'll also take a look at the rest of the country briefly as well. So looking here, you can see the cold front just off the coastline here, and you can see this marked by the wind field here. This is velocity scan, kind of tells you the strength of the wind and the direction it's moving. If you see red on a Doppler radar here, it means it's moving away from the Doppler radar. Green means it's moving towards. And you can see the stronger wind just in front of the cold front and the weaker wind just behind it. And you can see these little segmented areas of the cold front. Let's pick up the rainfall and the wind as this moves through, and you'll hear it knocking up against the windows of your house as it moves through later this afternoon if you're in the Puget Sound or Willamette Valley, and earlier, of course, on the coastline here. Now, look at this is a Langley Doppler radar here. This is a very good tool we have. For the first time, when we put this radar in 2012, we've been able to see these systems come through in the ocean, and we've been able to see all kinds of cool, interesting features like these little segments that are associated with the cold front. Prior to that, if we look at the Camino Island radar, for example, you see these beams are just blocked by the Olympic Mountains. We could not see out over the ocean there at all. You can see across the Puget Sound, once you butt up against the Olympic Mountains or north of them, you could see just fine. But another limitation on Doppler radars is that, for example, Camino Island, once you get down towards Kent or Tacoma, you're at 5,000 feet. The radar beam is scanning higher into the atmosphere. So you're not going to get a great picture of what's at the surface. So there are limitations to Doppler radar. So that's why the more the better. So that Langley Doppler radar really gives us a nice view of what's coming. We could really use one on the Oregon coast here too, because we have a Doppler radar here in Portland, as you'll see. But you'll see these beams are blocked by the coastal range. Some of them do make it through, but for the most part, we're only reading, like for example, showers at a very high elevation or systems. We can only see the highest levels of these storm systems as they move in. And then as you can see, we move south. We just basically blind central Oregon coast all the way down through the southern Oregon coastline. We're just blind to what's coming storm-wise. And this really affects us in short-term forecasts. So maybe someday, I don't know if anybody's trying to actively do that now, but the Langley Doppler radar is really a nice feature. I can remember before 2012 trying to determine what's coming. You'd have to check out the satellite imagery, and then you could see it kind of sneaking around the Olympics on the south side for what's coming for the Puget Sound. And it's just a great thing to know on just how strong a storm system is when it's rolling in the short-term forecast. So checking things out here on the infrared satellite imagery. Well, let's back up there again. You can see the storm system coming. We've got the cold front embedded back in here. Then this very cold air aloft. It's going to bring a thunderstorm threat later on this evening for the coastal regions, and then eventually the entire region on into tomorrow, Tuesday, as this cold air aloft moves in. Then we've got a more dynamic system coming in Wednesday, and this is going to bring some more cold air aloft, and it's going to negatively tilt. And I'll show you what I mean by that. As it comes off the Oregon coastline, it's going to bring us some interesting wind profiles as well, too, which could bring some severe weather, even some strong wind gusts, some good amount of hail, and even a tornado threat along the coastal regions there. And we'll look at why that is. Briefly looking around the rest of the country, not much going on. There's some freeze warnings across mainly Missouri there. There's some winter weather advisories going on as well as the storm system sweeps through, but nothing major. There's some wind advisories with this system that's coming through here today, mainly southern Oregon, Nevada, Sierra Nevadas, and Northern California coastline here. They could probably extend that a little bit up on the Oregon coast, but not a big deal wind-wise. You see this plenty of times during the season. This is today, looking at that general thunderstorm threat comes on shore this evening with that cold air aloft. Tomorrow, you can see it encompass much of the Pacific Northwest. It's going to include British Columbia, of course, as well. And then as we go on into Wednesday, look at this. They've got that marginal severe risk for the Oregon coast. This might extend up towards the Washington coast, depending on how the system comes in. But we'll take a look at why that is. And the SPC, I was surprised that they picked up on this so far in advance. And if we scroll down, you can see this here, Pacific Northwest. We got our own discussion. And it might be not out of the question that the environment could be conducive for low-top supercells with the potential to produce a tornado. So 3 days out, they are mentioning the threat along the Oregon coast there. And we'll see how far inland that extends. Will it make it into the Willamette Valley? I checked some wind profiles there, and they looked pretty good. So if we can get that instability inland, we could extend that threat into the Willamette Valley, as they kind of show there, actually including Eugene and some of the I-5 corridor. So we'll look at that also, especially tomorrow. We'll look at this a little bit more closely to see if this continues. And Western Washington not out of the threat yet either. That could extend up towards our way here in the Puget Sound. Now, looking at the wind picking up on the Oregon coast during the day today, you can see it spreads inland a bit. This is the NAM. It was showing some gusts for Seattle up towards 40, but you can see there's some pretty windy areas elsewhere, probably up Skagit, Whatcom County towards the water, probably 40 plus. San Juan's up towards 50 miles per hour. So a pretty windy system. A nice little punch coming through later this morning for the Willamette Valley as well. And the Oregon, Washington coast, you'll hear the wind gusting as well, but nothing too crazy. Nothing out of the ordinary for the most part, winter storm wise. So taking a look at the NAM 3KM precipitation forecast, they put this into motion here. We go into the morning hours. You can see the segments of this cold front approach the coastline here. That's current. Then this eventually moves in the interior, the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, down through Northern California. Southern BC, all getting this frontal system moving through the region here. This drapes all the way down to the Bay Area. Sierra Nevada's getting some precip out of it. Washington Cascades, Oregon Cascades getting good snowfall. British Columbia as well. You can see some of these segments rolling through eastern Washington, Tri-Cities, Ritzville, Spokane. Moderate rain embedded in this frontal system as it moves through. And then you'll see that cold air aloft get introduced to the Oregon-Washington coastline, and you'll see it behind there as well on in through the day Tuesday, as we have an unstable atmosphere around for a general thunderstorm threat. Now here comes the system Wednesday as it rolls towards the shoreline here. There's some good instability behind it, some nice wind profiles. There'll be good wind shear, surface relative helicity, and that's why it's drawn the SPC's attention to this possibility on Wednesday. And now we're looking at the surface temperature here. You can see the cold front approaching the coastline this morning and sweep across the region. Thought that was a nice depiction there of the surface temperatures as we go on in through tonight. So we're going to cool down a bit as we go on into tonight to tomorrow. Now looking at the European here, I wanted to show you the European versus the GFS. They're pretty good agreement here for Wednesday's wind profiles. You can see the southeasterly surface winds along the Oregon coast here. Then it turns south-southeast at 2,500 feet. At 5,000 feet, it's mostly southerly. And at 10,000 feet, you'll start to see it turn southwesterly here. And 18,000 feet, 500 millibars, you see it turns a bit southwesterly here as well. So we've got good turning in the atmosphere there. We just need that unstable air to match up with this wind profile. Now here's the GFS showing what we're looking at Wednesday morning. You can see the southeasterly wind, this big looping hodograph here, which gives that needed turning. That surface relative helicity value is really off the charts here. And if you meet that up with an unstable profile, that's what can give you those low top supercells. And that's why the SPC has taken notice. Now, if we put this into late morning, look at the atmosphere destabilize. You probably get a 20,000 foot supercell in this kind of environment here. And if you match that wind profile up with the previous look in this morning, then you can really start to talk about that tornado threat across the Oregon coast and maybe even into the Willamette Valley or places into southwest Washington. We don't know how far that's going to extend yet. We'll take a look at that as we get some high resolution models in range tomorrow. Now looking at the extended forecast, here goes our cold air aloft over us on into tomorrow and today's frontal system moving through the region. And then there's Wednesday's system digging that trough out over us. And the European and the GFS start to disagree here going into next weekend. The European looks like it has some nice days coming up next weekend. And you want the European on your side for the most part, a little bit more reliable. So it shows some ridging, that Gulf of Alaska troughing out here, but that can add to the ridging of this time of year, and we can start to string together a couple nice days in a row. But then it ejects that trough through the area, hangs it out for a few days, but then it brings some ridging back again later in April into early May. So just something to look forward to as we get on into the extended. It's still fantasy at this point, and the GFS does not agree completely with the European. So we'll take a look at that in the upcoming days here. Now here's the GFS. There's our frontal system. Good agreement there. Cold air allow for Tuesday. Wednesday's system, still pretty good agreement there. And then it tries to build a little bit of a ridge here as we go in towards Saturday. So we may get a nice day on Saturday according to the GFS, but then it drops this trough down on us a little bit more quickly than the European did. So we'll have to watch that trend as we go through the next few days here as the GFS in the extended hangs a trough over us. And you can see as we get into the early part of May, a complete disagreement with the European and the location of this ridging. So we'll just have to watch how this goes as we're getting off into fantasy land here. But we're always looking for nice days in the future. Now looking at during the day today, some pretty good snowfalls through British Columbia, Olympic Mountains, Vancouver, and all the way down through the Oregon Cascades, even the coastal range getting a little bit. Eastern Oregon, the Rocky Mountains of Idaho, Montana, British Columbia. So a nice snowmaker. And we're going to continue that on through Wednesday as well. So this goes out 90 hours, some pretty good snowfall amounts coming. So keep building that snowpack for our summer months. Now looking at the European here the next 10 days, you can see how it warms us up here as we get towards next weekend, bringing us even a little bit above average for Sunday and Monday as we remain below average mainly for this week as we have these cold upper level troughs moving over the region. But there is hope according to the European model for next weekend. So cross your fingers, sun lovers. Now, talking about La Nina a little bit more, this chart kind of gives you an idea. This is probability, a forecast here, and this goes all the way to December. So this is looking April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. You can see La Nina is favored all the way till the end of the year. You can see the odds of neutral conditions, which are gray here, increasing as we go towards the end of the year anyway. And right now, I think it's kind of a coin flip between neutral and La Nina conditions at the end of the year. But the forecast favors La Nina. You can see this very small chances of El Nino. It would, I don't see that happening right now. But I wanted to point this out again because this is really a stark indicator of just how different El Nino and La Nina can be for the Pacific Northwest. This is since 1980. There have been 17 La Nina Decembers, and we've gotten 49 inches of snow for SeaTac. And 15 El Nino years, December for SeaTac, 3.1 inches of snow total. We met that in one day in December this past year. So that is a stark difference. I mean, an El Nino December since 1980 averages about 0.2 of an inch of snow. And neutral year does better, but it's still only about half of what an La Nina year gets during December. We've had 11 neutral years since 1980 with 14.9 inches of snow there. And you can see this really goes on throughout the year as an El Nino, you're only bringing in 3.7 inches of snow on average since 1980, and La Nina bringing in 8.6 inches. Some of these El Nino months don't do too bad. You can see this February here, 14 months with 22.9. This is boosted by 2019 February, which was an El Nino February. Otherwise, it would be very low on the snow totals here. But you can see La Nina still edges it out a bit. And we look at this signal here for November neutral conditions still. 27.3 in 12 years, 2.3 inches averaging for November. So maybe if we do move into neutral conditions here for November, we can expect another surprise November snowfall. Now looking at temperature, I wanted to show this again if anybody missed this yesterday, but there are some really stark differences here between an El Nino year and a La Nina year. I mean, look at this. March of an El Nino year is it's 3.5 degrees warmer on average during an El Nino year. Just a very stark difference. And that goes on through almost the whole year. It becomes much less of a signal during the summer months. But as we get into the winter months, fall, spring, it is really a huge indicator of how warm we're going to be. So look at May. We're in La Nina, so we're at 54.39. Look at an El Nino. Over 3 degrees warmer on average per day during an El Nino year. So, if you guys want a warm spring, just have to wait till the next El Nino to roll through, apparently. I mean, there's some pretty impressive differences here. Thunderstorms, there's not much of a difference here. And so we're not going to look at that one too much here, but you can see this frontal system. This is what's going to bring tomorrow's potential thunderstorm across much of the region. And then a more dynamic system is going to approach the coastline Wednesday. We really got to watch this one. we could get some impressive hail, even some gusty winds, and even a tornado threat with this next system Wednesday, marked by this energy out here. This is going to spin up and negatively tilt off our coastline. So enjoy this rainy day today. You're going to probably get some moderate rain at times, even some heavy rain briefly at times, some gusty winds with this system as it rolls through. And this is going to extend all the way into eastern Washington. Good snowfall in the mountains coming as well. So heads up if you're traveling across those passes, especially the higher passes. And then we're going to deal with the system on into Wednesday. And again, the Europeans showing some ridging coming up for next weekend and some warm temperatures. GFS not as bullish on those warm temperatures. So we'll try to, get some agreement there with the models as we go on through the next couple of days. We still have a few days before this weekend comes up, but it might not be too bad this upcoming weekend. So hopefully you guys are enjoying these videos. Click like and subscribe, and we'll talk about this dynamic system coming in Wednesday a little bit more with a tornado threat for portions of Washington and Oregon possible. And I'll talk to you guys later.